Okay, so when we're seeking to know the truth, that is, to have a cognitive map that accurately displays what is real, one very important component of that is a thing that we call a perspective. A perspective is something that it's um, it's like a very complex map, or a map that we can see through. Uh, we can see the aspects of the map. Let's put it that way. So when I look at something, when I'm perceiving something, I'm focusing on it. I'm focusing on it from a particular point of view or locus, the identity. This is who I am. This is what I'm looking at. And then I make meaning through a kind of interpretive lens. Here's how I understand what's going on. And so that choice of focus and locus and lens causes to arise what we're going to call a perspective. It's a point of view. It's an elaborate way of saying, here's how I see it. As we examine how it is that we see things, we discover that in fact we can have multiple perspectives. Let me just invite you to think for a moment about your second grade classroom. Probably haven't thought about it in quite a while, but just think of it. Bring to mind your second grade classroom, or third grade if that's clearer, but a place you spent a lot of time a long time ago, someplace you knew really well then, but you probably haven't thought about for a while. You can find that. You can find a memory of that. You can, in that space, sort of look around and see what was there, remember what happened there. Just bring it to mind as vividly as you can. Now, as you're focusing on your second grade classroom, you're focusing from a particular point of view or a locus of your identity. You may be remembering what it was like when you were a second grader, or you may be thinking about it as who you are now, remembering what happened when you were in second grade. You can, and when I've done this with hundreds of people over the years, is a roughly equal balance that people will choose. Am I approaching it from who I was then or who I am now? No right way to do it. And once we think, oh, there's another way I could have done it, we kind of look at it from the other perspective. We didn't have very many interpretive lenses when we were second graders. But now I can look at my second grade classroom as an educator or as a psychologist or as an architect or as a sociologist. I can use different interpretive lenses to understand and see different things about that experience. So each of those is a perspective. And so we can have multiple perspectives on the same object of consideration. And so, if you have 5 people who watch a car crash, you're going to get 5 different versions of what happened because they're each seeing it from a different perspective. Part of what we know about truth is that our capacity to see from multiple perspectives increases the depth with which we can see what's going on. This is why we get together and we do Bible study. We look at a particular passage or a particular text. In high school, the whole English class was looking at the same poem, but we brought different perspectives to it. And somebody would say, well, this is what I see. And I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. And so we begin to appropriate more and more perspectives. And the more perspectives I have, the more I can see with depth. I got an email this morning from a friend of mine who's a Dharma teacher in Austin, and he was sharing a talk that he had given about Buddhism and about how it allows us to see what's going on in our lives and to make better choices about how we're going to show up in our life. Buddhism is a complex map, or actually it's a whole set of maps. Some of the words that Buddhists use they're not English. We got, well, what is Dharma anyway? What is dukkha? We need to learn what these words are so the language becomes a kind of map. And we're going to talk about that in a few days. We're going to come back to language as a map. The point here is that we want to be able to recognize that people have multiple perspectives. and that the fact that they come from a perspective different from our own is actually helpful, because if I'm curious about how somebody else sees it, now I get a new perspective. I get to have this added way of looking at something. Not all maps are equal. All perspectives are in some sense valid because somebody is seeing something through an interpretive lens that works for them. Some perspectives work better at solving certain problems than other perspectives. Another email this morning, a friend of mine sent a link to a conversation between a couple of doctors talking about treatment for COVID. And they are talking about perspectives that they share fairly closely, although not quite. So there's a conversation. Well, what do you think about this? And what about that? And they are describing a perspective on treatment that is different from what other doctors are saying, certainly different from what politicians are saying. And they were identifying some barriers to being able to respond in a healthy way, in a helpful way to the pandemic, because certain people are looking at this from different perspectives and they're not seeing all of the different parts of it. They're only seeing from their own point of view. So it becomes very important for us to recognize that the perspectives we have may be valid, but they may not be the best perspective for solving a problem, which means we have to be open to multiple perspectives. And the more we can see from multiple perspectives, the more we're bringing what is a mature set of maps to an issue. All right, let's hold it for there.